Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's Wednesday, September 26, 2018. We'd like to welcome you all to the special meeting of the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission. May I have the first item, Myrna?
Item 1 is roll call. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
Commissioner Kirkjian.
Here.
Commissioner Sahakian. Chairperson Yakubian.
Here. Next item?
Item 1A is flag salute by Chairperson Yakubian.
Please join. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item?
Item 2 is posting of the agenda. The agenda for the Wednesday, September 26, 2018 special meeting of the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission was posted by Monday, September 24, 2018 before 5 p.m. on the bulletin board outside of City Hall.
Next item?
Item 3 is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. The commission may ask questions, but may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. I have no speaker cards.
No speaker cards. Okay. And Myrna, may I ask you, are there any speaker cards for the next item?
No,
Or do there need to be? No speaker cards.
not at this time.
If there's anybody in the audience here that would like to speak on item number 4, which is part of the public hearing, if you would please fill out a card and hand here. Have you all, anybody? Okay. So I'd like to, you brought that into record, Myrna, the next item? Okay. So go ahead.
Item 4 is public hearing, presentation, and report of potential transportation projects for the 5-year Measure M sub-regional program. Mr. Edward Heedy will be presenting this item.
Very good.
Thank you, Myrna. Good evening, Chairperson Yakubian and Commissioners, staff, and public. I'm going to go quickly through the staff report. There's a lot of information in it, but I'm going to focus on the goal and the purpose of this meeting or this hearing. This is pertained to the, after the public voters approved the Measure M, Metro, who administer and manage that program, requested from each agency within separate sub-region or COG or Joint Power Authority to prepare there are three tasks need to be completed in order to release the fund to those agencies. The first one is to identify who will be collecting or representing each agency as the governing body who will collect the public inputs, and that being addressed back in January of this year, 2024, where this commission will be the role that will assume the role for the city forum for solicitation and collecting public input on the project that we'll be touching on. The second step is for have the public participation plan in place, which we do have. You see that in attachment 1. And the third step, which we are here tonight, is to give the opportunity and the chance for the public to comment on the attachment 3, which has the list, the attachment 2, which has the list of the project that has potentially to be approved by the Joint Power Authority, with Arroyo Verdugo Community Joint Power Authority Board, and which they will take it to Metro Board for final approval. There's a process that they went through. We have consultant Jonathan Overman with Cambridge Systematic, who have a PowerPoint presentation. He will go through what Measure M is, what are the steps we are today, where are we today, and what will be the next step in order to part of the compiling all the project from all those 6 agencies, and the prioritization and funding. We only have $24.2 million roughly for the next 5 years to fund any or combined of those projects that we'll be touching on. As you know, our city is part of the Arroyo Verdugo Community Joint Power Authority, along with the Burbank, Pasadena, South Pasadena, La Cañada, and the LA County with the unincorporated area, La Crescenta, Montrose area. Unless there's any specific question, I would like to give the chance to our consultant to go over the PowerPoint presentation, and then any question you may have will be available to address it. if that's something we can move forward with that.
Yep. Number-
If I may, please, we're on item number 5?
Number 4, I'm sorry, wait.
Oh, the 4, okay. I stand
Item
corrected.
4.
Good. I'll wait till number 5.
Sure.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Good.
Thank you, Edward. So as Edward described, my name is John Overman. I'm with Cambridge Systematics, and we were hired by the JPA to help administer the first multi-year sub-regional program for the Arroyo Verdugo's communities. So I'm going to give you background on what this means, the process that we've been going through, and the next steps, as well as give you all and the public a chance to comment on the potential projects, suggest new project ideas if you have them, and just this is kind of a receive and comment presentation. So again, I'm going to give you an overview of what the multi-year sub-regional programs are and what Measure M was. I'm going to discuss the process we're using to develop the Arroyo Verdugo MSP plan, and then again show you the projects that are relevant to the Glendale area and surrounding communities. So first, what is Measure M? As I'm sure you all know, it was a sales tax passed in 2016, a half-cent sales tax for the entire county. And this was a fact sheet prepared by Metro around that time that calls it Arroyo Verdugo cities, but there's 3 major benefits to the subregion. There's the major capital project, the bus rapid transit connection from North Hollywood to Pasadena, which I believe there's a presentation on tonight. There's additional local return dollars. So the cities in this subregion already get money based on their population in terms of from local return, and there's supplement of those funding sources. And then the subregion received 6 multi-year subregional programs. And so that's what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. So as Edward described, this is a new subregion. It's a new governing body for the subregion. So in Measure M, it designated these funding sources for the subregion, and so the cities, the 5 cities, as well as the county, formed this Joint Powers Authority about a year ago in order to help administer programs like this. So as I said, it's Burbank, Glendale, South Pasadena, Pasadena, La Cañada, Flint Ridge, and then the unincorporated communities of La Crescenta, Montrose. So the total funding for these programs is about $24.1 million in the first 5 years. So the Arroyo Verdugo's communities have 6 multi-year subregional programs funded through Measure M. Only 2 of them are active in the first 5 years, and those are the transit projects and modal connectivity and complete streets programs. In the first year, again, this measure goes, the expenditure plan included funding for a 40-year period, but there's technically no sunset date on this measure. But in the first 5-year period between those 2 programs, there's $24 million. As you see over the life of the measure and the other programs, there's a lot of money in the later years, $1.4 billion almost in total. But a lot of that money is reserved for 2048 and beyond. So what we're looking at for the MSP, which is a prioritized 5-year plan, is that programming those $24 million. And I should note that the Arroyo Verdugo's Communities Joint Powers Authority Governing Board is the decision-making body. So I've been working with the TAC, which is made up of representatives from each city and the county, to start this process, and we'll be going to the board with the prioritized project list before it goes to Metro. So they will bless the project list before going to Metro.
Actually, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah, of course.
Can you go back to the 3rd slide where it says the 765 million projected? It says 2018 to 2057. Of that $765 million, $24,000 allocated annually?
This is the total projected local return for the subregion over that 40-year period.
For 40 years.
Yes.
And of this,
I believe.
$24.1 million comes annually?
Okay, so the local return is a separate funding sources with separate requirements. So I just wanted to give you some context about what Measure M, the benefit of Measure M to the subregion. So you have some major transit capital projects. You have some major, I'm not sure if there are any major highway projects. You have local return. There are some other funding sources that Measure M also provides money for. There's some competitive grant programs that it funds. So those 2, the major projects and the local return up there are separate from what I'm talking about. The multi-year sub-regional programs is what I'm talking about. There are 6 programs of which 2 of them are funded in that first 5-year.
They're different funds, okay.
Sorry for the confusion.
Thank you.
So since you seem to be entertaining questions,
Yes,
John,
please
Thank you.
interrupt me as I go.
If you go back to the visual, that one, please. Where does the $24.1 million number come from? And where does the 1390 number come from?
So the 1390 is the total, in the ordinance, the Measure M ordinance, it's the total amount of dollars for your 6, for the subregion's 6 multi-year subregional programs over a 40-year period. So that's what Measure M said. We've projected this amount of money is going to come in for the sales tax. We're going to allocate, or whatever term they use, $1.4 billion for these programs. Because it's a sales tax and they have to deal with cash flow issues, every year they release how much money they think that they're going to have for each of the programs that are funded. And that that's, I don't know exactly how they determine that, but for each year in October, they'll release another year of funding. So we know how much you get in the first 5 years, but you may get a bump in the 6th year. It may be the same. But we won't know that until, actually, we should get another fund estimate this month.
So the 24.1 comes out of a calculation based on the, what was given to the voters to vote on, based on the 1.390? Or why is the 24, why would that not be 35 or 55 or 60 million?
Yeah, and it's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure how Metro has done their projections. You know, if you looked at the average amount per year for those 2 programs that are funded, it's less than the average per year. So it's even within the programs that are already funded, you will see an increase at some point, but I don't know. I'm not sure how those decisions were made at Metro.
And the ones in years to come are not even identified as yet, is that correct?
They are not funded yet. That's correct.
No, I'm sorry, not
There's
funded.
no dollars we can program yet.
Identified as potential improvements.
Correct.
They are or they aren't? I'm sorry.
The funds are not available until those years. So there may be projects that could be funded, but the dollars aren't going to be available until 2033 or 2048.
So, but under the categories that are not bold, active transportation, goods, movement, all those actual projects have not been determined, or they have been determined? Not the money form, but the projects.
This is a good question. So none of the projects have been determined. You know, there are projects that the cities have on hand that they would like to see funded, and there were some projects that were proposed as part of a separate process, which is how these categories got assigned. But you know, until they do this process for those programs in the future, we won't know what those projects are.
But the first 2 have been identified.
The first 2, the funding has been identified. We've identified potential projects, and that's why what we're talking about tonight.
So the public can hear it. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so within those 2 programs, it's roughly $13.5 million for transit projects, about $10.5 for modal connectivity and complete streets. And if we were to allocate the money based on population, this was what the relative shares of that money would be for each jurisdiction. So Glendale, with the largest population, would get almost $10 million. And Metro has not told us how we program this funds. We could do it sub-regionally. It doesn't have to be this fair share approach, but it was the agreement of the TAC that we should aim for something that's relatively fair share, and so that at least every community benefits from these programs. So we're going about it with this in mind, that those are the target numbers, but if one city has fewer projects in the short term and more projects 5 to 10 years out, then we can collaboratively identify a way to create this funding plan that meets the needs of all the agencies.
Can I jump in? So I understand your 5, the short term. How are you factoring in then what's needed for the mid to long range projects and how that gets? I mean, I see that there's a wish list of what would like to be done, but what percentage of the prospective money that would be coming to Glendale's way would be what portion of that short term is it of the grander pie, so to speak?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but we need to fund projects that are able to be implemented quickly. They don't have to be totally shovel ready, but the dollars are only available for design and construction. So we want to hear ideas about conceptual projects, and there are some conceptual projects on the initial list that we gathered, but we want to keep a record of those, so in future years we can revisit those, or perhaps a city can get other funding to do feasibility studies to advance these projects. So we want to keep a record of the future projects because this is a program that not only is going to continue on every year, but also can be updated every year. So the governing board can choose to amend it on an annual basis, reprogram the funds if a new project comes up and it's now more feasible. I didn't get your question about the percentage.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to understand. So right now, for example, I'm looking at mid, long-term projects, and Glendale has something called the Beeline Bus Electrification, which is something that's happening in other areas. But do we have a sense of like how much, would be dedicated to something like it's too early, or is it too early in the process to understand how much of that would go to that?
I think the short answer is it's too early. I don't know how much funding is going to be available in the future years, and I'm also not as familiar with that particular project. So I know there's some staff members here who could answer specific project questions. And again, if it's kind of a future year project, it's who knows what the priority would be 5 years from now.
Can I at least find out, are these the items that are being presented, are they in line with like Metro's deadlines? Let's say Metro has a deadline to accomplish something by such and such a time. Is something that, is Glendale doing that? Are we in line? It would seem a little bit ambitious to set earlier deadlines for Glendale to meet, say, let's just say electrification or whatever it is they want to do. I would like, I would hope to see that it's in line with what, since we're getting the money from them, that we have it in line with what they're doing. So do we have a consistency between what the proposals are and what the agenda of Metro is?
This Metro, they have their own project that John mentioned earlier. It's already more regional than specific in certain city or certain sub-region. What we're here tonight, just those are a wish list that each city agency come up with. If you add up the numbers, they don't add up. They'd be way over 24 millions. We're looking what can be done in that first 5 years window. What will be most prioritizing those projects, make sure that it serves at least 1 or 2 or more cities to make it more appealing, more being into the qualification to be eligible for this funding. So at this point, what we'll come up with, this is not Metro is dictating which project you want, but they will dictate which one they will approve at the end of the day. So the process is, after we gather all those comments today from the public as well as from the commission, based on what the staff prepare here, we have the transit project and we have the complete street project, and we have tonight also Catherine Engel, who oversees the transit division in the city. If you have any specific question on the buses or the transit system, because here what the staff look into, maintenance, operation, buying new buses, provide more services, more routes, and provide the connectivity between the public to get to those stations and move on the first and last mile. This is the goal of what the transit division is looking into. The funding, it's in the millions of dollars. We may get some, all, or none. The final decision will be made by Metro at the end of the day. As well as the complete street, we have 3 projects that we have Sarkis with the Oganessian. He's with the Public Works also. He will be answering any question you may have on a specific of those 3 streets that we have, whether Foothill, Victory, and sorry, I lost my thoughts. And
Grand.
Granox, thank you.
Sorry.
On what entail those projects, those improvements. Those, the staff, as well as the guidelines that we receive from Metro, if those projects are qualified to be funded, but whether be qualified if it's packaged with another project that other neighboring cities within that region, within that sub-region, can be packaged and maybe phase it. If it's over 24 million, they can phase it. At that time, Metro in 5 years from now, they will know how much the tax will generate and how much they can allocate with the projected at maximum 1.4 billion in the next 40 years. So a lot of assumption, a lot of expectation, a lot of projection in numbers and figures and even projects. As you see, there's so far 4 agencies, 4 out of the 6 agencies within the sub-region already held those public meetings. Pasadena will be tomorrow. We are here today, tonight. The other 4 cities already took place, those meetings last week.
Okay.
South Pasadena, Burbank County, and La Cañada. So when consultant is going to take all those comments from all those 6 agencies, compile them, organize them, comparing to the guidelines that Metro has, and prioritize those reports, and look at the fundings, priority, which one makes sense, which one doesn't.
I'm just,
take it to the
yeah,
board.
but I'd like to know who comes up with when you say staff, who's coming up with the wish lists?
As I mentioned, we have in the transit division, Catherine, and we have in the public works staff that overseen by the design division, engineering division, public works,
So
that
is this
presented
money-
by Sarkis.
I'm sorry, Edward.
Organization.
So is this money exclusive, when you say transit, does that preclude the money to be given to things for, let's say, the pedestrian safety plan that Glendale has
Oh,
comprehensively?
that's different fund, and this different
can't be
categories.
used-
This is ATP and other fund.
So it can't be used to better, like, the infrastructure of the walkability of streets? I know
From Met-
besides the first mile project part, is that your understanding?
There are like 6 categories, right? We only have 2 for that was designated by Metro to our region, the JPH, the transit, and the complete street. There's the ADT that has other features in it, including the pedestrian, including the bikes, including other model of transportation. That's not part of that categories that we can function or we can propose projects. That's why the transit kind of limited to the maintenance, limited to purchasing buses, improve the infrastructure of the maintenance facilities, and add the first and last mile. The other categories you're talking about, again, whether serving the city or serving the region, we need to think more a little bit outside what we want versus what's allowed to be considered as qualified project. We need to see how can we not benefit the city as well and benefit the neighboring cities within that region, or the Joint Power Authority or River Dugo.
I'm sorry, please.
Let me ask one more. The proportion of the money that's going to be allocated, is it has to be, or spent actually, will it be a proportion with allocations over there, the 13,462 and the 10,577 for transit and connectivity projects too? Is that how we have to allocate the projects or the funds?
Technically, no. There is an option to swap between the programs, and that's a decision that the governing board could make. So this is sort of what we're going with right now is we're going to try to program the funds according to the program guidelines. But if you know, at the discretion of the governing board, they could go to Metro and say, we'd like to swap some of our programs.
So one wish list goes, let's say, $14 million, the other one could be $10 million, for example, and accordingly it could be decided by the governing board.
Technically, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think,
Why
Edward,
don't you go ahead? I'm sorry.
Is it the definition of the governing board, please? That is,
the governing board is the governing board,
Joint
governing
Power-
board of the Joint Powers Authority. So it's made up of representatives from each of the 6 agencies. So I'm not sure who your representative is on the governing board. I should know.
We have the council member, Divine, who sits on our board.
so it'd be 5 individuals on that governing board from the Joint Powers Authority
6 with the county.
with the
6
county.
with
Thank you.
So Edward has already kind of alluded to a lot of this, so I'll run through it quickly. So what have we done to develop the plan so far? Again, we've gathered project ideas from city staff for these 2 particular programs, for modal connectivity and complete streets and transit projects. We looked at their eligibility, really, you know, looking at the program guidelines. Do these projects have a nexus to what Metro is trying to accomplish with those programs. And then also looking at, can these projects be constructed in the short term? Are they relatively shovel-ready? So that's how we've got to this project list that you see today. Metro also wants each subregion that has a multi-year subregional program to look at qualitative performance. And I should back up and say that not every subregion has MSPs. You have 6, some subregions have, I think, 7 or 8, and some have 0. So this is, for all the subregions that have MSPs, we're supposed to look at these performance measures and evaluate how the projects perform according to mobility, economy, accessibility, safety, sustainability, and quality of life. So what we've done with the initial list is to give a qualitative score of each project based on how the project meets those performance measures. As Edward said, we're in our kind of public input process right now. We were at 4 agencies last week: Burbank, South Pasadena, La Cañada Flint Ridge, and the Crescento Valley Town Council. Tonight at Glendale and tomorrow at Pasadena. And some of the cities are also going to bring it back to their council as well. And we have a survey, which I'll point you to at the end of this presentation, for additional public input. But this was the plan that was put together by the JPA before they put out the RFP for this project, to have these established commission meetings as the primary point for public input. Okay, so now we're going to go into the potential projects for Glendale. So we're starting off with the transit projects. There are 2 that are for the maintenance facility. There's a new photovoltaic system for the maintenance facility, as well as an emergency generator. You have the project list, so I won't read these details. But again, stop me if you have any questions. I'll run through all the projects, and we can come back to any if you have specific questions. Again, these are all the kind of the candidate projects that we're starting with, and if you add up the total of all these projects, as Edward mentioned, it's beyond the funding available, so we'll have to prioritize. There's funding there could be funding for replacement buses. So that's the service area that Glendale currently serves, also benefiting Burbank and La Crescenta Montrose and La Cañada Flint Ridge. There is an idea to have a 1-seat ride along Foothill Boulevard. So that's the stretch up in Glendale, and it would run all the way to Pasadena. So that would require some coordination with the other jurisdictions. Another project at the Transportation Center is a State of Good Repair project. A bus purchase project to actually increase frequency, so beyond just bus replacement, but to purchase new Beeline buses to expand service on those lines. First and last mile connection projects at the Transportation Center, so real-time arrival, other amenities at the center there. ADA access and other improvements to stops along Verdugo Road and Glendale Avenue. A potential new route that goes up from the college up near Montrose, connecting to Garfield and Glendale Community College and to the train station, as well as an extension of one route over to the Rapid Bus on San Fernando Road. Then one concept to do either a dial ride or some sort of microtransit service to serve some of the communities that do not have the density to support fixed route transit. So the Canyon areas in Glendale, as well as the foothill areas in Glendale. And then we've also presented this idea to the communities of La Crescenta Montrose and La Cañada Flint Ridge for their consideration as well. And as Edward mentioned, there are 3 modal connectivity and complete streets projects that are on the Glendale list. One up on Foothill Boulevard. This ideally would be a joint project with the other communities. And at La Crescenta Montrose, the county had mentioned trying to get some grant money to study the whole corridor as a kind of a mobility study. This portion is just the Glendale portion there. A Victory Boulevard project connecting from Griffith Park to a planned project in Burbank, which I'll mention. But these are kind of complete streets, bicycle and pedestrian accommodation, and other safety improvements. And finally, Glen Oaks. I believe there are already bike lanes on this project, but this would be more of a complete streets, including high visibility crosswalks, other crossing treatments, and other bicycle improvements. So just to highlight a few projects in Burbank that complement your potential projects. So Burbank also has proposed, at least on their candidate list, some bus replacement purchases. They have a couple complementary complete streets projects, again on Glen Oaks and Victory. So these would be extensions of the Burbank projects to connect to downtown Burbank and the Burbank Metrolink station. And then also on La Cañada, Flint Ridge's list is a study of Foothill Boulevard. So this doesn't quite get to the limits of their city, but there is some potential collaboration on a complete streets on Foothill Boulevard. So I won't show you these projects because you have it on your list, and anyone in the public who does not have the list, I will kind of point them to where they can find it. But this is a sub-regional program, so there's projects that may not directly benefit your residents, but visitors of Glendale and your residents may visit these other cities. So I encourage you to look at other projects and go online and provide comment on any of the other projects. So I'll just flip to the next step slide. So right now we're gathering input on these potential projects. We're going to continue to gather feedback. The next step after that will be to take this feedback in and actually prioritize projects. So we have a list of projects that is beyond what we can possibly fund in the first 5 years, so we need to make some decisions about actual programming. As I mentioned, the governing board will approve the list before it goes to Metro, and then Metro will have a 60-day period where they will review the list before it actually gets approved by the Metro board. So as I mentioned, there's you have the list, and there's an online survey, and there's cards in the back that where you can link to the survey and also see the project list, so you can review the projects and provide comments on any of the potential project ideas. So I have time for any questions about the process. I know you've asked a few already, but thank you.
I'm going to ask to hold off on the questions if you don't mind right now. I'd like to invite members of the public. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on this issue? Nobody has come. So I'm going to ask, this is very concerning to me. So this is meant to be a facilitation of, the public to be able to come forth and speak. I want to know exactly what do we have in terms of the outreach.
Sure. Over 2-3 weeks ago, the city made an effort through the social media. We have on our website, it was posted what you see, the attachment number 3 in the staff report. You can find it on the city website with the link to the survey that John mentioned earlier. We also have the social media that the city has that's been already out there available. There's the Public Works on page on the website already advertising or listing this project, this meeting tonight, as well as the information about the Measure M. And 2 meetings ago, the City Council, through Councilmember Devine, she announced about the upcoming meeting tonight, September 26th, and as well the GTV6 already been broadcasting and advertising or make the effort for public outreach about the meeting tonight. So those pretty much like the 4 kind of means of medias and public outreach and announcement, as well as the public may heard from other meetings that took place with the other agencies who are member of this. They may be aware of that also. So we've done the best the staff can do to
Yeah, I guess my
reach out the public.
Yeah, and I guess my question is this a aberration, the fact that I don't see much public, many of the public here to speak tonight on this issue? Or is this just you already have received quite a bit of public input up to this point?
Not yet, but tonight there's some are staff sitting here in the public, and the rest are public available for any comments they may have. So if you like to encourage them to ask questions, or if they like to fill
Yeah,
up
I
the
mean,
cards.
I would love to hear
Yeah, so
from
I know
people.
some of the staff here, but the
Is
rest
there anyone
are
on the
resident, I
staff,
believe that.
would like to make some comments? Fred? I'd like to hear, Fred, would you mind saying a few words or your thoughts on this? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Good evening. This is Farid Orban. I'm Senior Transportation Planner for City of Glendale. And Major M project I went through with the participation of Public Works, and they did a really great job on that. But the question is that, are you asking, did we did any outreach? Is that what you're looking for? Or the
Yeah, I
type
want to
of
make
the
sure, because
project
we
you
were,
were-
we were given, which I think a very big responsibility, with the Joint Commission to be able to facilitate, the public input on these, on this measure. So I want to make sure that, as a commission, we're providing that, and that the community understood that today was a day for them to be able to come and speak on this. And if not, should it be done at another time? Will they be given another opportunity to be able to speak if they're not here tonight to speak on this issue?
Mr. Overman, as you know, he he
Community
attended and
development.
gave presentation to every city so far, in the member of the sub-region.
Right.
People can ask him question, how many in Burbank? I personally went and attended Burbank. There was one resident only, with no
I see.
comment.
Okay,
I know South Pass, close to 8, I believe.
I see. Okay,
So unfortunately,
Yeah.
the turnout, you're right, it's not as probably we
okay.
anticipate.
But that's what I want to
I
understand.
don't know if there's any
I just
effort
wanna know if
can
this
be
is a-
done to improve that, but they have not missed any opportunities yet.
Okay,
There's still that post or that announcement still on the city website. There's still a link, like Mr. Overman mentioned, public can still go to that link and enter their comments, their feedback, their input about those projects, any concern they may have. The consultant's still collecting, gathering those inputs, so can be compiled, analyzed, and take it before, sometimes in November, I believe, will be taken to the governing body
Okay.
for approval
good.
before taking to
Okay.
Metro.
very good. All right.
Do you have any question for me?
No, I'm okay, Fred, thank that. Did you have a question?
I just have a question for John, please. First of all, John, thank you for the presentation and the overview that you've given us. Would you kindly put up the fourth visual?
Say that again?
Would you
Fourth.
kindly put up the fourth visual?
The fourth visual?
The table or the map?
The map,
The map. The first.
that one, thank you. So my question is, there certainly appears to be connectivity north and south within the Arroyo Verdugo communities. Has there been any thinking, or who is doing the thinking, to make any connectivity south of Glendale? And is there another joint powers authority there? And what is the name of that joint powers authority? And besides the thinking that apparently has been done north and south within this map, and east and west, which seems to be the emphasis, east and west, I'm very curious as to how, as either different joint powers authority, how are they looking at, especially relative to Glendale, going north and south, especially south?
There's no other joint powers authority. So
South of Glendale?
south of Glendale is City of LA. So they have their own sub-region within Metro.
Okay, so
This is
then,
kind of the central
so
sub-region.
then, to me, that's another entity. Has there been, who's responsible for looking at southern and northern connections from Glendale to downtown?
That would be Metro as a whole, and they do have a kind of regional program, regional projects funded in Measure M, but as countywide planning looks at all of the kind of sub-regional movements. And I just, if I can, I'll just comment on the last question as well. And I realize it is a low turnout tonight, but I just want to say that this is, you know, the first time that this program has been available, and it's also a program that's going to continue. So I think that the benefit is that now that the commission and the staff knows about the funding, as you know, each year more money gets applied to this program, you can, you know, hopefully the residents will become more and more available, that there is funding for these projects, and we'll get more interested in coming
And
out.
I guess the premise behind my question and concern was I would hope that this would work negatively towards the city of Glendale in the fact, you know, when they look to examine how this process played out, that this wouldn't work negatively in terms of the reflection of you know, no public speakers tonight, and confusing that with, you know, perhaps not enough public outreach, and then therefore jeopardizing Glendale's stake in this enormous, you know, funding. So that was at the basis of my concern, Edward.
Sure. And just Chairperson Jacobian to address Mr. Commissioner Gonzalez about mobility between north, south, east, west of the city. The staff put those projects because they are aware of what the city's needs are. We'll try to, at the same time, explain those projects doesn't just benefit the city, benefit the neighboring cities.
Of course, as you said
specifically the
earlier.
one within the sub-region, because the money only really, even though south, yes, another sub-region, we cannot commingle the funds, nor we probably at that point to commingle funds with another sub-region. The Metro gave funds for those particular sub-region or COG to figure out a way or project that benefit all, or if it's benefit one city, that improve in within, that could be maybe considered. It depends though the cost, because they don't want to end up being, that 24 million may end up going to only one city. Nor it's going to be break it down very small project that may not be significantly making any impact or address the need and the objective of that project. So some of the project that you see, especially whether the streetscape or street improvement, the complete street project and transit, that help our city as well as, because we do serve other cities in transit and the B line. So improving buying new buses or adding more frequency pickup, drop-off stops, improving our facility, that not just doesn't help us, it helps the others also. And that will bring that project, give it higher priority than others. So there is benefit for the city also, but we need a little bit to think not just for us, for the others, because this is a collaborative effort and shared funds that we need to all benefit from it.
What I was attempting to comment on, and I know other commissioners have heard this before, is the connectivity to where the action is relative to people who live in this Joint Powers Authority, except maybe for South Pasadena and Pasadena, because they have access, direct access, and we can tell by the number of cars that have been added and parts of the gold line that goes through there, and the blue line that they're talking about changing the name. We don't have that connectivity from Glendale, and for some reason we've lost that opportunity. Measure M is a major amount of money, and it would just be curious to me why there's no. You know, you said this would be done by LA, City of LA. That's got to have a large amount of money. Is there a way that there can be a study done to make a north-south connectivity for all of the Joint Powers Authority without having to go to the east and then come back down south? And right now, I know we're talking about that from a rolling stock point of view, but why wouldn't we have a connection from our transportation center south into downtown? Because once you're in the downtown, you can get anywhere from there. And the number of cars that have been added and people in ridership from Long Beach to Pasadena, when Pasadena was extended way out east, has become, I mean, people are using this now. I think the Joint Powers Authority and any connectivity to Los Angeles and getting into downtown would be something that I think the future generations of people who live in Glendale are not going to have. But I know I'm a broken record in that.
No, that's all right.
But
That's
it
right.
just seems like why aren't we looking at better connectivity directly south, like we used to have with the red car?
I don't know if Fred may have any. Fred, do you have a second, please?
But this can be another time, or if need be. I just,
Because there's a lot of project studies here, the BRT, LRT, along the Brand, along Central, North and South, and that's something, there's the big
Chairman,
master plan, if you can
there is a
discuss
couple
that.
of big projects going on. One of them is Metrolink expansion in city of Glendale, and also we are requesting from them to do the feasibility study for light rail on San Fernando connecting to downtown, to airport. And this project is going on now, and the feasibility study is going to be done in 2 years. And after that, we're going to have some funding to do some.
which would not come under M, or could conceivably come under M?
The feasibility study is funded by Measure M, yeah. But we requested that light rail be added on that project, and we insist on. Actually, as a matter of fact, we had this morning meeting with them, and we request that, and they're going to look at it, yeah.
Oh, that's kind of good news. I was not aware of that. Were others aware?
As of this morning, it's fresh from our, yeah.
Very fast track on what's going on with Measure M, what the project that Fred talked about. We'll be looking to make sure there's no overlapping or redundancy. But the funding, even for the larger project, may come from different pockets, and some may end up coming from Measure M also.
Not from this pocket, from different Measure M. It's regional fund.
And I know this is not the object, this is not a normal meeting. This is really a meeting for the public to comment on, but in a way, we represent the public. So we are public.
And let me just make it clear, so Michael, because of the nature of the no public comments, I haven't really officially closed, the public comment period, so we're going to let it go. I wanted to ask some questions of Ms. Engel, if it's possible. A lot of these projects seem to be centered around the Beeline, and the Beeline is the backbone, I think, of, Glendale transportation. But I just, from a commissioner's standpoint, I think the last time that we had a study on the Beeline has been quite some time, if I'm not mistaken. Are we going, how many years ago was the last study on that?
Madam Chair, the last line by line, which was a look at the existing Beeline service, was in 2013. One of your agenda items tonight is our transit route analysis. And so it is an expanded look at the Beeline service area in general, and we'll look at both Metro, Burbank Bus, some Pasadena Arts connections, our Beeline service. So it's a kind of a bigger look. Okay. It will tie together with the Next Gen program that you're also hearing about, and also ties in with the BRT presentation. So the timing for the Measure M and the projects that Transit is listed on here are tying into things that we anticipate may come out of the Next Gen and Transit route analysis. So we're hoping that everything kind of goes parallel, and at the end, we end up with some funding to do some of the changes that we'd like to see.
Okay. Now, if I may, I've been also advised for issue of time, because one of our commissioners must step out at 7 o'clock, it would be wise perhaps to, if there's no other pressing questions on this, to maybe move on to the next agenda item, unless we want to continue this conversation and have staff, postpone it into a later date. But I think the presentation has been made. The point was to have the public comments, which we don't have at this point. But I would like to move on to the next agenda item and have the bus rapid transit way between, item number 5C, have that presented for us, so we know we're of a time crunch. Lillian, do you have enough time to present? Okay. Can I have you, Myrna, can you? call that into the record.
Item number 4 does have a motion.
Oh, there is a
to-
motion for
Yes.
it.
Do you want to postpone that, or do you want to take a motion?
Okay, well, I guess we should. Let's do that. Do you have that motion?
Yeah, it's here. It's in the attachment. Here it is.
Back here. All right, well then, do I have a motion to, I guess we're moving what our comments for agenda item number 4, right? How would I phrase that? Do I hear a motion for that?
I so move.
Is a
Second.
motion to note and file the report.
Yes, it is.
I move as noted in the packet received by the commissioners.
It's hereby noted upon, yes, and seconded by Commissioner Kirkjian, that the September 26, 2018 report regarding potential candidate transportation projects for the 5-year Measure M Multi-Year Subregional Program, MSP, for the Arroyo Verdugo Communities Joint Powers Authority is hereby noted and filed. So we have a motion and a second. Yes. Erna, can you move on, please? Thank you. Thank you.
Item number 5 would be information only, bus rapid transit way between
call.
North Hollywood.
Oh, yeah, we need to take a roll call, Myrna.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Kirkjian,
Yes.
Chairperson Yacobian.
Yes.
Item 5 is information only, and we're going to move it to bus rapid transit between North Hollywood and Pasadena.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Lillian De Los Gutierrez, and I'm the Community Relations Manager at Metro for this exciting project. Since the passage of Measure M, we've been really busy with many projects. Some of them you've heard today, including, is this my clicker? Including the Next Gen Bus Study, which I believe you will be presenting on as well, which is looking at restructuring all of our bus lines. There's also a feasibility study that our regional rail team is looking at in terms of improving service on Metrolink between Los Angeles, Glendale, Burbank. That is also underway. There's also various highway improvements that Measure M has funded in the Arroyo Verdugo subregion. But today we're here to talk about the North Hollywood to Pasadena Bus Rapid Transit Project. And the reason for that is that we are going through an alternatives analysis phase, and you're going to be hearing different concepts that we're looking at doing in terms of how we would implement this project. And our goal is to narrow those concepts down to a workable number that we can then carry through an environmental impact report. To do so, we're going to be doing some community meetings, getting feedback from the public on those route concepts. We're here today to also hear your thoughts on the concepts, so that, again, we can narrow those down. Our meeting in Glendale will be on Monday at the, at the Pacific Park Community Center, and it will be from 6 to 8. And we have noticed many of the residents already in Glendale and throughout the corridor. And after I show you a quick video, I'm going to turn it over to our project manager, Scott Hartwell from our countywide planning team, who will share with you all those concepts that I'm referring to. So with that, if we can run the video, and it'll give you a flavor of what the project is all about.
My drive on the 134 from Pasadena to Glendale is just dreadful.
You can see your exit half a mile away, but you know that it's going to take you 10 minutes to get there.
I work at the Burbank Airport, and commuting from Sherman Oaks to Burbank can definitely be a hassle.
I work at NBC Universal Studios, and I travel westbound on the 134. If I were to take mass transit, it would involve me going eastbound to catch the Gold Line, then go south. This is all out of my way, to Union Station, and then have to take the Red Line back up north, when really a more direct route would be so much quicker, more efficient.
To be honest, I think the options are few and far between. Just kind of feel like we're stuck on this little island.
There aren't a lot of options for commuting between the Valley and Pasadena, and car trips are on the rise. That's why Metro is planning bus rapid transit between the San Fernando and San Gabriel valleys to provide a new way to ride between North Hollywood and Pasadena. Bus Rapid Transit, or BRT, is a different type of bus service that's faster, more reliable, and convenient. BRT stations offer a more comfortable wait than local bus stops with passenger amenities. Signal priority minimizes the amount of time buses spend at red lights. Limited stops keep buses moving. And dedicated bus lanes minimize traffic delays. The North Hollywood to Pasadena Corridor project will add an important link in Metro's system, connecting the Metro Orange, Red, and Gold lines across North Hollywood, Burbank, Glendale, Eagle Rock, and Pasadena. This project has $267 million in funding from the Measure M half-cent sales tax and SB1, and is on the list of priority projects to expand Metro's network and connect more people to more places.
I would absolutely use the BRT to travel from Pasadena to Glendale. I would be much more efficient with the time that I used.
I'd be able to work on my computer on my commute. I'd probably be able to sleep a little bit longer, which we all like sleep.
The BRT line would be a great opportunity for my friends who are out in other parts of LA to come in to see my LA.
Gas is expensive, maintenance is expensive, insurance is expensive. Being able to get rid of some of that would be amazing.
Having a comprehensive system that connects everybody, it's transformative. I want that desperately for Los Angeles because I'm a real proud Angelino.
Okay, well, good evening. So as Lillian mentioned, my name is Scott Hartwell. I am the Metro Project Manager for the North Hollywood to Pasadena BRT. Let me first thank you for the opportunity to present some information about this project. As Lillian mentioned, we are very excited at Metro to be working on this, and we think this is a project that can work well not only for Metro in the region, but for Glendale. And so we're looking forward to partnering with your city as well as the other cities and communities along our corridor. So before I get into some of the alignments that we've been looking at, let me first start off with a little bit of information on what is BRT. So BRT has long been characterized as light rail on rubber tires, and the reason for that is that it offers many of the same benefits and amenities as light rail, but at a fraction of the cost. So what you see here is a diagram of what a BRT station could look like. It has many amenities associated with BRT and that are also consistent with what you see with light rail. So for example, from a comfort standpoint, you see the big canopies. You have ample shade, ample seating, bike racks, Wi-Fi, next bus digital displays that tell you when the next bus is going to arrive. From a convenience standpoint, these BRT stations are also designed to minimize the amount of time that the buses spend stopped at the stations. So through such features as all-door boarding, so passengers can board the front of the bus and the bus at the same time so that they're not waiting for a line of people to get on the bus, is one way to reduce the time that the buses are stopped. Also, collecting fares, what's called off-board fare collection. So you have people pay their fares at the station while they're waiting for the bus to come, and so they're already paid by the time they board. And from a performance standpoint, such features as signal priority, so buses spend less time at red lights and catch more green lights. Also frequency. Our light rail system, for example, operates during peak period every 5 to 10 minutes typically, and we envision the same thing for this BRT. In addition to that, stop spacing is more like a rail system in the sense that the stops are usually spaced every half mile to a mile rather than every block or 2 block that you typically see with a local bus system. And dedicated bus lanes are also another feature that are common with BRT that help to really move the bus quickly and reliably from one key activity center to another. So with that, move on to the next slide. So here are some examples of BRT stations. As you can see, they're typically well lit for enhanced safety, and you have many of the amenities that I talked about at these types of stations, which, as I mentioned, do sort of look more like a rail platform than a station. So here are some examples of running ways or dedicated bus lanes. So the picture on the left is the Omnitrans SBX service in San Bernardino. It's a center-running BRT. And on the right is our Wilshire BRT that operates on Wilshire Boulevard and during peak periods has its own exclusive bus lane. So the nice thing about BRT is the flexibility that it offers in terms of the types of treatments that can be implemented for the service. So what I mean by that is take dedicated bus lanes. We know that can be difficult to implement along some segments of the corridor due to right-of-way constraints and community input. We understand that that will not always be possible in some segments, and we recognize that. And there are other types of treatments like signal priority and other intersection improvements that can still help to speed up the buses. So just a little bit of project background. This is a Measure M funded project. It is funded with $267 million in Measure M funds as well as SB1 funds. And in addition to that, the Metro Board has committed to operating a 100% zero emission bus fleet by 2030. So, and they have made it known that the BRT will be a priority for the electric buses. So we fully expect to have electric buses by the time that project opens, which will have not only an air quality benefit, but a noise benefit as well, because the buses are typically quieter than CNG buses. So we believe that BRT can offer solutions here in Glendale to some of the challenges that Glendale faces. It's no secret that Glendale is a major regional shopping destination as well as an employment destination. And so because of that, a large number of people are commuting into Glendale, which of course generates traffic delays and congestion and has an air quality impact as well. And so a premium BRT service should help to mitigate some of those issues by providing an appealing alternative to driving, one that can attract choice riders and be competitive with the automobile by moving people quickly between key activity centers. In addition to that, this project can augment Glendale's planned streetcar, which we know is very important to the city, as well as other investments in transportation improvements that the city is looking at, and complete streets, those types of things. So this is a slide of the study area. It's a 16-mile corridor. It includes 4 cities, city of LA, Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena, and is home to about 800,000 people. So these concepts that I'm going to show you came out of our technical study, which was completed in early 2017. This was a document that we worked on internally. It was not vetted with the public, but it was done with input from the various cities along our corridor. And keep in mind that these alignment ideas are really just a starting point. We're not committed to taking any of these alternatives into the EIR at this point. They're really, as Lillian mentioned, a starting point for us to work with the cities and get feedback from the communities. So what you see in blue here, and I'll zoom in on the Glendale portion, but in blue you could see the primary street running alignments that we looked at in the technical study. And that would run from North Hollywood, the Metro Red Line, Orange Line station, to Pasadena, Pasadena City College, and would travel on surface streets in Burbank, primarily on Olive, and then connecting with Glen Oaks, where it would go through Glendale, turn south on Brand, and then east on Broadway, where it would connect with Colorado and go all the way to Pasadena. We looked at, okay, so this is a close-up of the street concepts. We did look at a couple of variations, one coming out of Burbank that would travel on Flower, and then within, closer to the central of Glendale, we looked at an alternative that would travel down Central. So this is the primary freeway running concept that we looked at that would also travel from the Metro Red Line, Orange Line station to Pasadena to connect to the Gold Line, and it would primarily operate on the 134. In addition to that, we looked at an alternative that would go up the 5 freeway to connect to the Hollywood Burbank Airport. And this is, again, a close-up of the freeway running alternative. So just like the alignments, the stations are also a starting point, nothing set in stone, but we did look at a couple of stops on the freeway alignment that would go through Glendale. And so this is a high-level project schedule. We are officially in the alternatives analysis phase, and we will be until the spring, at which point we will start the EIR process, go through engineering, construction, and ultimately get into operations by FY 2022 to FY 2024, which is the Measure M opening date range, is an actual 3-year range, and we expect to make that. So some quick next steps. As Lillian mentioned, we do have a community meeting coming up on October 1st here in Glendale. And in the spring, we will be returning to our Metro board to present the results of our alternatives analysis and begin our public scoping meetings and the draft EIR process. We will continue to work with Glendale as well as the other affected cities along our route throughout the process. And in Glendale, we will be coordinating with your city and your community on the city's various initiatives, including the streetcar and the freeway cat park. So that concludes my presentation. Let me just finish by saying that we do want to get this right, And to do that, we do need to partner with your city and your community as well as the other communities on our corridor, and we think we can really do a great project for the city and for the region as a whole. So thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
You need to.
I'm sorry, I gotta leave, but 2 questions. One, I attended a meeting last week where there was conversation about SB1 being extinct maybe in 6 weeks. What will happen if these funds are tied to SB1?
Okay, so
And second question, what is it wanted from us as a commission as far as the proposal of here? Do you need some kind of guidance during the public meetings as far as take the input from us and public to finalize the drawing, whether it is freeway? I mean, all details that's highlighted here. I don't want to go through that.
Sure. So to answer your SB1 question, the $267 million that was identified was in Measure M. So the full amount, as shown, is safe, regardless of what happens with SB1. Now, there was an additional award that we received for SB1, but at this point, it's really, there's no easy answer as to what's going to happen to that money, because we got the award, but it wasn't allocated yet, so it's kind of complicated. But the $267 million is guaranteed.
Thank you.
And as far as your second question is concerned, yes, any feedback that you all have here tonight regarding some of the alignments would be appreciated. When we go out into the community, that is our primary goal, to get feedback from them regarding some of the different alignments that not only we've shown you here tonight, but any additional ideas that the community might have. And we will have rollout maps and all kinds of ways to interact and really facilitate a conversation on that.
Thank you.
The only comment I have would be to please take a look at the pluses and minuses of a freeway route versus a surface route. And I guess preliminarily, it would seem like the freeway route would be less expensive. I'm just guessing because there are less stations. But the pluses and minuses of that versus better access on the streets versus on the freeway. And then what happens, I think sometimes stops are on the freeway or near the freeway. I've read where people who have to take light rail on freeways, they don't like necessarily the environment there, Gold Line being one of them. But it's just a thought to please consider the pluses and minuses of that, because I think it's a seminal issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on like a high level, there is sort of a, going into what you said, there is a comparison that needs to be made. When you look at the freeway running alternative, it probably would have a faster end-to-end travel time, and there would be fewer stations most likely, but you wouldn't necessarily serve as many key activity centers or generate quite the ridership that you would along a surface route that might be a little slower end-to-end, but would connect a lot more people potentially.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I don't have any questions. Yes, we do have a commissioner who has to leave tonight. I don't have any questions. Actually, it was a quite interesting presentation. But with Commissioner Kirkjian stepping away, where will that leave us, Mike? So will we be able to listen to the 2 other presentations, or
No,
at this
Chair,
point we do not have a quorum? I would have to
Sure.
respectfully ask staff to postpone those 2 agenda items. Presentation on the Metro Next Gen study and the presentation on the city's transit route analysis for a future date when we have a quorum. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lillian. Appreciate that. I would like to, though, is it possible to call up for an announcement? Can I do that? Or we're not at this point, can't do it? Yeah, I didn't have time. 1? I'm sorry. No, we can't, right? Okay, so we're going to have to.
And that's not possible
Adjourn.
even if we don't take any action, if we just listen?
Right, and no staff comments at this point. We're going to adjourn. All right, we're going to have to go right to the final. Myrna?
Item 7 is adjournment. Moved.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, boy.